Hello and welcome to Automox's CISO IT podcast. I'm your host, Jason Kikta. This month, our topic is giving thanks to those who make IT pros' lives easier. So please tell us in the comments about people or tools, but mostly people, who've made your work life easier. Now, before I get to my story, I first want to thank all of you because it's been 1 year since we began the Autonomous IT podcast series, and we have 53,000 subscribers and nearly 500,000 views. So that is tremendous, and thank you for all of your support. So today, for my story, I'm going to tell a C story. I'm going to tell a story from my time in the Marine Corps and give thanks to Matthew Yates. He was in the Marine Corps with me. We served together. At the time, I was a major and he was a lieutenant, and we were stationed on the USS Iwo Jima together, and we were running the communications department, essentially the IT. And we were trying to solve this challenge where the ship seemed to have a lot of satellite bandwidth, but what we were actually getting on the unclassified network, on the NIPRNet as we called it, but essentially just the normal internet network, not one of the classified networks, but the normal one, seemed to be intermittently bad. It seemed like it was getting congested really easily, but only for certain things, not 100% of things. And we were fighting through this, and we were trying to figure out what was going on because the classified networks seemed to have plenty of bandwidth. We seem to have really low bandwidth on this, normal internet connection. But then there were a handful of sites that just came through just lightning fast, but not many. And so, we puzzled over this, and finally, I asked Matt, like, hey, is there a way that you can get access to the thing that the Navy uses to, manage the bandwidth and manage the allocation here to make sure that, like, we're getting the same amount that they are, like we're supposed to, because that was the agreement, right? It's supposed to be a 50-50 split between the Marine Corps and the Navy. And Matt, like any good Marine, said, breaking into Navy stuff, absolutely. So he went and fiddled with it. I didn't ask a lot of questions, and I don't feel bad about it, and no one's going to get in trouble here, honestly. So we managed to get access, and Matt pulled these traffic reports and said, hey, the classified networks, they're not using very much bandwidth at all. We should have a ton of bandwidth. And I looked, and they're giving us a 50-50 split. Like, their service is miserable as well. And we looked at it, and we couldn't quite figure out, like, put our finger on what it was. And then one day I noticed it was unencrypted websites. So if the website was unencrypted, if it was just plain HTTP, it was lightning fast. But you put encryption on any connection, and it would just slow to a crawl, and not commensurate with, encryption always slows things down a little bit, but modern encryption is pretty fast, pretty efficient, very, very well optimized in modern web browsers. And this was, back in 2018. So this wasn't like the Stone Age. It should have been still pretty fast. So, we're puzzling over it, and we're, Matt's running the traffic analysis. He finally comes up and goes, oh my God, I got it. I figured it out. The biggest bandwidth link we have. So we had like multiple satellite shots, right? I want to say like 3 or 4 different, satellite terminals that were attached to the mast of the ship that were shooting it at various, satellites up in geosynchronous orbit. And so, each one of them was pulling its own set of bandwidth, and then the system would sort of treat it as one aggregate pipe and then break it up into quality of service, different quality of service tiers for the different networks and everything else, to make sure that, nothing overran everything else, that, Marines and sailors browsing Facebook to keep in touch with family and friends weren't preventing classified networks from being overrun, or even just normal, like, logistics work. But he said, I figured it out. All of the encrypted traffic is no matter what we do, no matter how our satellite shots change as we go in and out of range of a given bird, or things go down, things come up, it's always at whatever our largest size shot is. Whatever the largest pipe is, it gloms onto that, and it will get no bigger, even though the system should allow it to fail over to not fail over, but expand beyond that single pipe. And so right then, our largest pipe was 8 megabits. So no matter what you did, no matter how much bandwidth you added to the ship could have, a lot. And I think at that particular moment in time, we had like over 40 megabits of bandwidth. It didn't matter that anything that used HTTPS out to the normal internet or to another DoD system would only, like, that traffic could have a max capacity of 8 megabits, no more. So, we're puzzling through this and trying to figure out like what could be going on. And Matt says like, hey, like, let's call the ground station. And I said, are you sure? Like, this seems like a configuration on our side. He said, no, I'm telling you, like, I've looked through all their stuff. I've been really thorough. I've gone through it multiple times. I am certain there is nothing misconfigured on our side. It must be on the distant end. They must be capping us somehow, and our system is honoring that cap. So we reach out and we call the ground station that I think was like in Italy or something, because we were in the Mediterranean. And sure enough, I get on the phone with the guy and start talking to him. He's like, oh, yeah. We know exactly what you're talking about. This is a well-known issue. Been the case for years. And I said, what do you mean? He's like, well, all of those shipboard circuits, all of the transmission circuits, the phones, the internet, everything used to be, old school circuit switched, right? They used to be like treated as physical circuits that were independent from one another. And so we used old school circuit switching. They said, and then, along the way with IT modernization, the Navy upgraded it all to packet switch. So, even the phone service was essentially voice over IP, and it's all just packets going across the wire, and it's all fine. I was like, okay, yep, I'm with you so far. He said, well, we had the multiplexing set up for circuit switched, and multiplexing is where you have multiple circuits coming into one thing, and you essentially, you multiplex them into a single link, a single circuit, and then you send it out across a satellite, across a microwave link, whatever it is, fiber optic even. And then when it gets to the other side, you demultiplex it, you demux it into, the signals, the original signals that were presented on the distant end. And he said, well, we're still set up for circuit switched multiplexing. We have not switched over to packet switched multiplexing. And I said, my God, they bought all this stuff. They've done all this investment, and no one ever bought the new stuff. He said, no. We have the new stuff. It's there. It's just, it is configured to be still in circuit switching mode. And I said, wait a second. You're telling me that for years now, the Navy and the Marine Corps have been dumping tons of dollars into this bandwidth to try and expand the bandwidth out. And it's on the old style of switching, which is causing us of like, you can go across the biggest pipe, but you can never traverse multiple pipes, when we could have upgraded to packet switching and made it go across multiple. He's like, yeah. That's, we wrote up the plans a few years back, and, they took a while to get approved, and, then it's taken a long time to get the work scheduled. And so, yeah, we're just waiting to flip the switch, but it's been years. I'm, this is a family podcast, so I'm not going to repeat the words that I said, but essentially I somewhat lost my mind on the gentleman and explained to him that I was going to write this up in detail and send it off in our next, we send situation reports when you're out deployed on a ship. I was going to send this in my next situation report to headquarters Marine Corps, and then we would watch the fireworks together, or you could turn on the packet switching right now. I don't really care which it is. And after some consultation with the supervisor and deciding that it was indeed serious, they decided to turn it on right then, right now. And they kept it on for the rest of the time that we were deployed. And of course, our trip back across the Atlantic, our transatlant voyage, as they called it. And it was amazing. everything started working. Everything on the ship suddenly had enough bandwidth. Systems started, like just flowing normally. So much work was getting done. Productivity went through the roof. So, again, I want to say a big thank you to Matthew Yates for his intellectual curiosity and willingness to go above and beyond and bend a few rules with me to make that happen. And again, this is that's a military context story, but I think it's a great illustration of how IT heroes each and every day can make a lot of people's lives better if they just lean into things and be a little fearless and challenge assumptions. So I encourage all of you to do the same, and stay safe out there. And I'll see you back here in December. Thanks.